Okay, so I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Leslie Brophy. As Lara Lee said, I'm a tech integration specialist at Hauppauge Schools. And so I'm going to tell you a little more about Google Classroom. If you would ask me what are my top tools that I could never live without, Google Classroom would be definitely the top one on the list, especially right now. So let me see if I could just move this out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to start from the beginning on how to access Google Classroom. And I know some of you guys are working on an iPad, so I'm going to try to kind of go back and forth the differences. So what you're going to see on my screen, it's a desktop version and not the iPad version. Most of the features are the same, but the way you get them are different. So just so you know that. Okay. So to get to Google Classroom, a couple of things. You could start a new tab. You could go to classroom.google.com, which is how you get to most of the different G Suite apps. You could also go to the waffle. This is the waffle. Scroll down and you can find Classroom. Sometimes it's not up on the top. You got to scroll down a bit to find it. So those are your options. I bookmark sometimes just so I have easy access to it. So once you get there, I have a lot of things. So you're going to see a lot of what they call tiles on my screen. Some of these are classes that I teach. Other ones are classes that I'm enrolled in. And I'll kind of walk through the differences between the two. So one is I'm a student in, the other one's I'm teachers of. So once you get there, you have a couple of options. This plus sign right here is kind of like where you start. So this is where I click on the plus. I could join a class. So if I was a student, this is how I would join a class. And there's a couple of ways that you can get students enrolled in your class, or I could create a class. So for this purpose, I'm going to create a class because you as teachers, you'll want to create classes. So I'm going to hit create a class. This is going to pop up because I'm using my personal account, and just an FYI, most of the G Suite apps you can share outside of your organization. Google Classroom is one of those that you cannot. So when I teach in service classes through other teacher centers, I use my personal Gmail account and I access the Google Classroom through there. For those of you, whatever your district is, you're going to be within your district, okay? So you kind of can't cross them. So hopefully that makes sense. So I'm getting this pop up because I'm on my personal account and I'm agreeing to the notice and I'm going to continue. Now I have the option to create the name for my class. I'm just going to call this PTC sample class. I have other options. I could do section, I could do subject, I could do room. It doesn't necessarily have to be there. I like to put some type of a time frame down, so we can call this June 2020. If it was a school year, you could call it 2019/2020 or going into next year. This way you kind of have a frame of reference. Just so you know, I never delete any of my classes, and I've been doing them for years. You archive them so you don't see them, but because G Suite for Education has unlimited storage, there's no reason to ever throw out anything, okay? I never put anything in the trash at all. And you could always access it once you archive it, and I'll talk about that a little more. So again, I could fill this in with other stuff, and I could always go back in and change this at any time. So I'm gonna hit create. And it always takes a minute or two to create because a few things happen when you create a class in Google. Number one, it automatically creates a folder in your Google Drive. It creates a calendar in Google Calendar. So a lot of things happen. So it takes a second for this to go through. So now I'm in my class. It automatically generated a class code. It gives like a default picture, and I'm going to show you how to change that. And it always defaults to the stream. And I'm going to talk about all these different, different sections up here. I'm going to give you my opinion on a couple of them, what I like and what I don't like, and where I go and steer my kids, etc. So this is the class. We're going to start over here to the far left, the 3 bars, or sometimes they call it a sandwich. So just in case you hear sandwich, that's what it is. If I click over here and I click on classes, I'm back to where all my classes are. Okay, so these are my tiles with all my classes. I have the ability to move them around. Maybe I want to move them around based on if I taught the secondary level and I want to do it by periods or however you want to do it. So this is, these are tiles. So I also want to kind of go through these different sections over here. So these are all my classes. This is a calendar. This is going to bring me to my Google Calendar. If you're in with your district, it's going to have all your Google Calendar stuff in there, but it also shows when assignments are posts, all that other stuff. All right, so I'm going to get out of the calendar. So if you look over here, it says teaching, and I'm going to get into this a little more later, but teaching to do. So if you have multiple classrooms set up and you want to know what you need to do, okay, maybe assignments that need to be returned, graded, whatever, you could go to do, and I'm gonna kind of bring it into my Hot Pot account a little bit to show you this better, but it's gonna give you amongst all your classes, or you could scroll down to your classes, all these things you need to do. So I don't want to confuse you, so I'm gonna kind of go back to this later. So I have teaching, I have all my classes I'm enrolled in, things that I need to do in my class, archive class, so all the classes that I've done past years, they're all there, I just don't see them. And we're going to talk about settings in a little while because that's different notifications. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. So right now I'm going to go back to classes and I'm going to go into the class that I just set up by just clicking in here. Okay, so let's start by this banner and the picture. So you might want to change this based on your class. So the way I do that is I click on select theme, and it gives you a lot of presets, themes based on what you want. I am just gonna grab anything right now. We'll just grab the computer, and then I'm gonna do select class theme. Just so you know, if you want to be more advanced, you can create your own banner and customize it and put your name in there and things like that. You would use Google Drawings, but that's definitely more advanced, so I'm not going to cover that, but just wanted to let you know that you have the ability to do that. Okay, so I selected my theme. I could also upload a photo. Here is my class code. So it automatically generates a class code. If we were physically in the classroom with our students, on my first day, the first thing I have them do is join a Google Classroom class. I put this up on my interactive whiteboard in the front, and they click on that plus sign. They get to Google Classroom just the way I showed you how to do it before, and they put in this code. Let's say that code could be confusing. There's numbers, there's letters, there's kind of things that might be confusing, especially if you're talking with the littles. There is a way to change that, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. As we go through. Okay, so the stream. The stream is where you send announcements to your students, maybe upcoming tests, welcoming to the class, whatever you want to say. So let's start with, and years ago, there really was, that's all there was. There was just a stream. That's initially what Google Classroom was. So welcome to this class. Okay, I can type more, write more, whatever I would like to do. 4, if I click on here, if you have multiple classes, so if you're secondary and you're gonna have one class, my suggestion would be one class for each section. You could post that announcement to multiple classes at the same time. Okay, I'm not gonna do that, but I would just check on the different classes that I wanted to post this announcement for. Okay, and we're not going to go to all students, but we'll talk about that in the middle. I don't have students yet, but I'm going to show you how you could kind of differentiate a classroom by just sending things to particular students. I could also add or upload. Maybe I want to add a syllabus or something like that. Here, I personally wouldn't, but we're just going to go with an announcement. Welcome to this class. And I'm going to post it. Okay, so students, as soon as they go into my class, they're going to see my little announcement saying, welcome to my class. The next section is classwork. Classwork is, to me, where everything happens. You could assign topics, which are kind of like titles, and you're assigning all your work. I tell all my students, go directly to classwork. I'm hoping one of the updates for Google Classroom is you have the option to default that it goes right to the classwork page. But as of right now, the default is whenever you go into a class, automatically goes to the stream. So the classwork is kind of where everything happens. So let's talk about what you could do in the classwork section. First of all, up on top is the create button. We're going to get there in a second. Google Calendar. So both you and your students will have a Google Calendar and a class drive folder. Your Google Calendar is going to be what your Google Calendar is, which kind of shows all your different Google Calendar. So if you're using Google Calendar, we're actually switching from Outlook this year over to Google Gmail, which I'm really excited about because it kind of puts all the pieces together for what we're doing. So if I clicked on there, it'll bring to my calendar. And when I get to my calendar, and I'm going to kind of show you this in my Hauppauge because I want it to mimic what you guys are going to see in your district. And then it has a class drive folder. So class drive folder on your side, what happens when I told you you created a Google Classroom class, it automatically creates a folder within your Google Drive. There's nothing you need to do. It's automatically here. So in here this is my drive. This is my drive. It's automatically called Classroom and the name of the class. As my students, as I put work in here and as my students return work in here, it's all in here. Nice and neat, packaged and organized exactly the way I want it. I could actually see students' work before they even turn it in by going to this folder. Okay, so those are those two. I'm going to wait to show you this right now because there's going to be no people or no grades because this is a brand new class. I'm going to bring you into my other class and show you that. So the create button is kind of where everything happens. I could create an assignment. I could create a quiz assignment, and I rarely use this, and just because I create my quiz assignments through assignments, just because I heard it's a little glitchy, so I just never use it. You can create questions, and I'm going to walk through all these in a minute. You could create materials. You're just giving them material. There's nothing they need to do with it. You're just maybe posting a syllabus, something along those lines. Reuse post. So you can reuse a post for any one of your classes. You could reuse a post from within this class, from another class, or even from archived classes. So if I click on reuse post, it's going to bring me to all my classes, and I could literally go down to a specific post, so I don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. This is going to take a minute because I have a lot of classes. So I'm going to X out of it for now. And I can reuse a post, and I could create a topic. So we'll start by just creating a topic. I'm going to call it class materials, and I'm going to click on add. So this is kind of just a topic. There's nothing I'm doing. It's just a way to organize everything. So at a, might look a little different in an elementary level as it does in a secondary level. Elementary level, I might want to do it by subject. And secondary level, I might want to do it by unit, by today. And I'm going to show you, since I've been distant learning, how I've kind of worked it with my class. Okay, so I could create these topics on the fly as I go, or I could get this all set up ahead of time. Up to you. Okay, so we're going to start by creating materials. So let's say in these class materials, I'm going to start by adding my syllabus. So we're going to call it class syllabus. And I could give a description. I don't have to. I could say this is the class syllabus. Read it, by so-and-so, whatever you want to do. This could be as long as you want this to be. So your description could be, you could go on and on with it. Okay. I don't know if there's a limit. I've gone pretty deep into this without them being a limit. So now I want to attach it. So down here, I have a couple of options. I can add, and these are my options. I can add a Google Drive, something from my Drive. And again, this is where kind of all G Suite kind of integrates really nicely together. I could just add a link. All right, so maybe my class syllabus is a video and I'm adding a link to the video. It could be a file that you upload from your computer, or it could be a YouTube video. I don't know, for class syllabus, it would be a YouTube video, but you could also create a add a YouTube video right from there. And I'm gonna kind of show you a little bit more about that in a little bit. Now, if I didn't have the class syllabus created already, I can create, and I can now access any one of these G Suite apps. Just for this purpose, I'm just gonna kind of add anything. I'm gonna add it from my Google Drive. So default is, it always starts with recent. I could upload it from my computer. This is my drive. This is shared drive. So if you guys were with me on the Google Drive webinar, these are shared drives if someone else shared it with you, and these are my start. I'm just gonna kind of find something that I could throw up here just to show you. I don't know, I'm just grabbing anything. So this is a Google slide, and I'm gonna click add, and it automatically adds it in here, okay? Notice I have no options. This was not mine, so of course I picked a bad example. Let me find something that was mine. What happened is I tried to upload a document that wasn't owned by me, so it was giving me a little bit of a flag. So I'm just gonna put this in here. I'm not gonna show it. Okay, so there is the folder, okay, and I uploaded it. If I decided, oh, I added the wrong one, I could exit out, okay, and I could just get rid of it. Over here to the right, I have some options. I could click it, it automatically defaults to no topic. I could either create a topic on the fly, or I already created class materials. So let's put it in class materials. Under 4, I could add this to multiple classes. So again, if I was secondary level and I had 3 sections of one subject, I could be adding it to all 3 at one time, so I don't have to go into each class separately. And once we have students, I'll show you how you could kind of just send, when we do more material assignments, to individual assignments. Now, up here on the right is where I post. Don't mind this, that shouldn't be there. I could just hit post, which would post it. But I also have options. If I click on the down arrow, whenever you see a down arrow, it usually means you have options. I could schedule this to post at a particular time. So I could say, and I could click on here, I could say, okay, I don't want to post this until Monday. And I use this all the time. I can create stuff ahead of time in my class. And this way I don't have to worry. It's there and it automatically posts at whatever date and time I want it to schedule. And I have a time here. It defaults to 8 a.m. if you don't give it a particular time. I could also save it as a draft. So if I save it as a draft, and I'll kind of show you what that looks like, or I could discard the draft. So right now, I'll just save it as a draft. Now, if you look at it, it's kind of grayed out and it says draft. So I know that it's not posted and my students cannot see it. So right now they can't see it at all. I could go back into it and say, okay, now I'm ready to post it. Maybe I was waiting to add something to it. I could go in and I could say, I could delete it, but I could say edit. And now I could say post. And now when I come up, I get this little pop-up. Students will see the material in their streams immediately. And I'm hitting post. And now I could see it's kind of bright. And it was posted and the time it was posted. Okay, so that is material. I could add as many material as I want. We're going to kind of add things as we go along. And then I'm going to kind of show you what a class looks like in a minute. And then I'll go into more people, grades, and some of the setting features. And I'm going to have to move along because I have a lot to cover and it's getting late. Okay, so creating assignment. So a creating assignment is where you're going to take whatever assignment you have for them to do and you're going to post it. So we're just going to call this assignment sample. Okay, click on the link below and I'm going to try this. Watch the video and answer questions in the Google Doc. Okay, and this could be anything. I'm just throwing anything out there. Now I'm going to click on add. Okay, so now I got to add my video. So maybe it's in YouTube, maybe it's a link, maybe it's something that you screencast and saved yourself. And going back to iPads, Chromebooks, whatever you have, I have my, some of my teachers use iPads, they screencast on the iPad, they upload it to their Google Drive, and then they just take that screencast right from there and they upload it from there. So you can grab it from wherever. Let's say it's a video in YouTube and it's on water cycle. You would obviously want to check before you posted this with your students. Okay, I could do a search again, or I could just find one ahead of time in another tab. I'm just going to grab this. I'm going to click on it and I'm going to add it. The video is now added. Okay, so it's already there. I could see it again. I could X out of it if it's not the correct one. Again, I would always watch it before I posted it for my students. Now let's say I also have a Google Doc that has questions on it that my students need to answer. So I would click add. I would find it in my Google Drive, and I'm just going to use anything just to kind of, I could do a search for it. I think I could do a search within here for different file types. I'm going to call it docs. And again, I'm just going to grab anything that I created. I'm just grabbing anything. Add, okay. And it's here. Now, notice it's a Google Doc. It's giving me something, I think, because it's, because I don't have a copy. This is not going to allow me. I'm picking a bad example. Let me just do that again. Google Drive. I'm just going to scroll down. I want to find something that I own. I think I'm just going to go back to this one. Okay. So once I bring this up, I created it. I have a couple of options. I click on my down arrow. Students can view the file. So the only thing they're able to do is see the file. They can't do anything with it. Students can edit the file, or I'm making a copy for each student. This is a great feature because I'm going to have this Google Doc created. I'm going to make a copy for each student. Okay, so they don't have to make copies. They automatically get a copy of their own that they are now able to edit. So make a copy for each student. And now I have a couple of options over here on the right. So I'm not going to get into rubrics. That'll be more advanced, but there are built-in rubrics. It's great that you could create your own rubric. And when you're grading this assignment, it automatically, you click on whatever criteria you created and you're able to, your students could see the rubric as well as you and grade it. But we're not going to get into that now. Topic, again, so I have class materials, but now I'm creating assignments. So maybe I want to click on create topic. And I'm going to just call this science. This is elementary level. And I created a topic. I'm going to call it science. I could give this a due date. I suggest whenever you have an assignment to give it a due date because it makes it much easier for the students to see that they have work, especially if you're remote teaching and they're getting a bunch of assignments from a lot of different teachers. It's hard for them to keep track of it. So they get a Google Calendar with dates that things that are due. And they also have that to do like I showed you before. So my suggestion is to always put a due date in there. You could always be flexible with it, but put a due date down. Again, so I could customize when it is. Let's say it's due on Monday. The default time is midnight of that night, of the June 8th midnight. But I could click on time and give it another time if I want to. Now, points. I could whatever points I want to give this. Maybe I just want to give it 2 points. It's out of 100 points, or this is something that's ungraded. So I have options here. And again, I could assign this to multiple classes or just this one single class. I could also differentiate if I had a bunch of students, all my students that are in my class, they'd be able to, I could see them all here. And maybe I just want to send this assignment to 2 or 3 different students. Maybe I co-taught a class. I want to send it to just those students. I have that option to go to those students. Everyone else in the class would not even see this assignment if if you didn't send it to them. Up here, I then assign it instead of posting it because it's an assignment. I have the same options. I could assign it right now. I could schedule it. I could save it as a draft or discard the draft. Okay, so I have a few options. I'm just going to hit assign. Take a second. It's probably taking a little longer because we're on a Zoom. Okay, so now I created this science when I was in there. Here is my assignment. If I go to my class drive folder right now, it's going to show this assignment sample and my template. So the template is the original one that I put in there. But if I went into assignment sample, I'd be able to see all my students' work as they're working on it, okay, before they even turn it in. So I could be giving feedback before we even turn in any of the work. Okay, now let's say, okay, class materials, I always want on the top. So by default, whatever is new will show up on top, but I could click and drag and move things around. I could also take my class syllabus, move it down to science, okay? So I have a lot of abilities for organizing, how I want to organize things. If you also notice here on the left, here is all topics. But once you start adding a lot, and again, being remote, we had tons of stuff going in there, and you had a ton of stuff in science, I could click on science and it would just show me all of the things in my science topic. Okay, again, I don't like quiz assignment. If I was going to put like a Google form quiz, and again, this is another whole, probably a more advanced Google Classroom, I would put an assignment and I would upload a Google form quiz, and I could automatically import the grades. So as they take the Google form quiz, the grades get automatically imported into the grading feature up here. So a lot of options with that, but again, more advanced, so I'm not going to go there. I just like to let you know what's available to you. The question feature. The question feature has become one of my favorite things, especially with remote teaching, because I could put an assignment in there that they have to do, but I make it a question feature and say, do you understand what you need to do? And they have to answer it. Or I'd use it as a class check-in. And again, I'm going to bring you into my class through Hauppauge because I did teach one section of the class to show you how I did that and how I use that. So the question feature gives you an option of short answer or multiple choice. So short answer could be, and I don't have to answer the question here. This could be the name of the unit, and then I could ask the question here or ask the question up here. What are the stages of the water cycle? And I'm sorry if I'm not science and this doesn't make sense. I could give more specific directions here. I don't have to add anything, or I could add a video. Maybe they watch the video and they have to answer a question about it. Okay, so that is the short answer. Over here to the right, they have some options with the short answer. Students can reply to each other. So this is a great way to collaborate in Google Classroom. If I check this on, the students don't see the other students' work until they respond to this question. And I love that because otherwise they just want to copy what other students are writing. So this gives them they have to think on their own. They have to respond to the question. And then once they respond, then they get to see everyone else's responses and they can reply to each other. So I could say, what are the stages of the water cycle? respond to this question, then reply to one other. Okay, so it gets a little bit of collaboration going. I don't have to have this on. I could toggle this off. I could also have it toggled on that students could go back and edit the answer. So maybe after they see what they posted, they realize maybe it wasn't correct. Do you want to give them the ability to go back in and edit the answer after? Okay, back into topic. Okay, maybe I'm going back into science or I want to create a new topic. Again, I always suggest give a due date. I'm going to give a due date when this is due. I'm just going to pick any random date. Is this graded? Is it ungraded? Again, I give a grade. Okay, it doesn't have to get transferred to whatever your grading system is, but it kind of, to me, holds them a little more accountable to do the work once they see there's a grade in it. And again, same thing up here. I could do it to multiple classes. I could do it to particular students. Here it says ask now because it's a question. And I could just hit ask, schedule it. I could save it as a draft. So you're kind of seeing some consistency. So I'm just going to say ask. Okay, so now you could see them here. Automatically, it goes to the top. But again, if I wanted to put it in another order, I can move things up and down and change the order. Now let's go back into question again and look at the multiple choice. And I'm going to kind of show this as a good check-in. So I have, I did a class check-in every time we had like AJB days where I was. So class check-in, and I would put the date and I'd make it a multiple choice. You could put instructions, but you don't have to. I could say, what is your favorite food? And believe it or not, I got great responses because there was like no stakes involved in it. And they just liked responding and they liked seeing each other's response. So I might give some options. I think I did what was your favorite meal of the day, but it just kind of made it, what are you looking for most after we get out of quarantine. Like I started making like fun questions and that kind of got them in and responding. And it could also be like an attendance if we go remote next year. So I could give my different options, tacos, I'm just grabbing anything. So I could do as many options as I want. Okay, again, now this is kind of fun. Students can see a class summary. So this could be like a poll type question. Again, I could do class materials. I could, I created a topic and I called it class check-ins. Again, I always give it a due date. I gave it points on mine, and we're going to talk about grading in a minute. I also specified and I called this participation grade. So I have that will show up in a little bit. All these look the same. Ask the question. So this is the basics. So now my class check-ins on the top, this is how the class check-ins were, class material, and my different, you kind of can see where we're going with all this. Now, I am going to bring you to my class. Just gotta move this out of the way because I want to show you some of the different features within the G Suite. So I'm going to go to all my classes. This is my current class I'm working on. Okay, so I'm going to go to my classwork page. So the way I kind of set it up, and again, all this, how you organize is your own personal preference. It's based on what area you teach, what grade level you teach. I always had it today. I always kept it on the top. That was kind of what worked for me. These are grayed out. So I'm kind of ready to go for tomorrow when my on day is on. This is what they posted in the past. This is just different assignments. These are all my different units. Okay, so I have everything here. These were all my class check-ins. If I go to people, so now this is where you're going to kind of see everyone. Everyone who's a teacher can get listed here. This is a great place to add co-teachers. Even if you don't have a co-teacher, Barbara is my another FACS teacher, and we were able to share when I told you you could reuse posts. You could share if you're in separate classes, so it's a great way to collaborate among teachers without having to reinvent the wheel. I could go into her classes and I could see what she's done, reuse posts from hers, and she could do the same for me. Or this could be a co-teacher. So to invite a co-teacher, I click right up here and hit the plus, and I could put their email or name, and I would send an invite, and they can either get an email invite, or if they went into Google Classroom, it would pop up and they could say, okay, I accept it, I want to be a teacher. Same thing with the students. So these are all my students that are in the class. I can add students. I usually add by just giving them their code. But if you were remote, you could also click on here and you could invite students by typing in their name or email. They would either get the email, or they would, once they went into Google Classroom, they could see that they were invited and they would accept it. There is a whole Guardians that you can have Guardians sign up for Google Classroom, that they get certain notifications. I'm not going to get into that now, but just so you know that that's available. And now you're going to see grades on here. And so now I have all my students and their grades. This isn't something, Google Classroom's not built to have the grading scale like you do with PowerSchool or Infinite Campus or any of those. So I use it for grading, but I don't use it for what an overall grade was, even though you could see it over here. Okay, so this is my classwork. So what I want to show you is this settings cog. So if I go to settings, this is where I have settings for this particular class. I could change my name, okay, the name of the class, my name. I could add, change whatever I want in here if I wanted to do that on the fly. But this is the class code. So again, it generates automatically a class code. Sometimes L's and I's and certain numbers, letters combined can be confusing. I could click on the little down arrow. I could display this if I was displaying it in a classroom. I could copy it and paste it in an email to send it out to people, but I could also reset it. I could do that now, my students would be, I could reset it, or I could disable it. So maybe I don't want to let anyone else in my class. I'm going to disable it. It's not going to disable the class for the students who are in it, just won't allow anybody else in. Okay, stream. So going back to the stream, so I showed you that where I posted my little announcement. These are options that I have that I could change, and I could change for each particular class that I'm in. So in this class, I have students can post and comment. So in that stream, students can post and comment. You might want to give them that ability. You might not, again, based on, you know, sometimes kids say stupid things. And again, you could mute students if they say something student. It's nice to get them collaborating and talking, but that's going to be your own comfort level of what you want to do. So students can post and comment. Students can only comment, or only teachers can post and comment. So you have some different options here on what you want. Classwork on the stream. So now this is only for you. This isn't what the student sees. This is what you see. And I want to kind of show you what the differences are. I like that you could show attachment and details, because it gets for me to see everything, especially when you're dealing a lot of different classes at one place. By default, it shows condensed notifications, which I don't generally like, or I hide all notifications. I don't see anything at all. So let me show you what that looks like. I like showing attachment and details. Again, this isn't what the students are going to see. This is only what you see. So I'm going to click on that. And I didn't save anything, so it's not giving me the option to save because I didn't make any changes. So I just want you to see what it looks like. So if I go to my stream, I could scroll down and I could see every time I posted something in the classwork or in the stream, I could see my assignment. I could see how many people turned it in, how many are left to do it, and how many are returned. You kind of always want to have 0 turned in, because if it's turned in, you want to be grading and returning it. So for me, it gives in one simplified view what assignments are there, how many people, how many students turned work in, how many were assigned, and how many do I need to grade? And I could click right from here and get into it. I could also do comments, and we haven't gotten into comments yet, so I'm gonna move along. Okay, so going back to my settings. So show attachment and detail, showed everything, showed condensed, doesn't show the work that was turned in, or I could hide all notifications, that's personal preference. Show deleted items, I've never toggled that on. So I guess if you want to show things that were deleted. Guardian summaries, if you do that, again, this is more advanced, you could toggle this on and off. What we have been loving is Google Meet. So Google Meet is the Zoom equivalent for Google. I could create a meet right from within my classroom. So the first time I go in, I need to toggle this on. But once I toggle it on and I make this visible to my students, I could toggle this on or off. And this would be great. Hopefully we're not remote, but if we are, what I love about this is if you go to the top of the stream, there's a Meet link. So let's say I'm going live with my students. I could say, go to the top, click on the Meet link. It's gonna bring them right to the Meet link. There's nothing they need to do except go in. Okay, so that's nice. And also on the top of the classwork page, if I look, all they need to do is click on that Meet. Anyone in this class is gonna be able to get right in. There's no codes, there's no nothing. They have the ability to do that. So again, we've never used this up until we went remotely, but it's been a huge help. And you have the ability to toggle this on and off. Grading. So again, I talked about grading. I don't love the overall grade calculation. I don't think it's as accurate as what you're probably used to. So I don't show the overall grade to the students, even though I can see it. But I could put grade categories in there, just like you're used to doing, and they can mimic what you use in your system. I do participation, assignments, tests, and I could add more. And again, you could have it, you could X out or put whatever you want in there. So that is the settings. So I want to kind of go back in and show you class commenting. So every time you create material, assignments, or any question features, you have options to, for the students or yourself to put in a comment within this post. So if I look up here, you could see that, so there was a comment. So if I click on it, I could see one class comment. I posted this, but a student might post a question. So maybe they're not clear on the assignment and they want to ask me a question. They could ask it as a class question, that means class comment, I'm sorry, that everyone can see, or a private comment just asking me the question. So class comments and private comments are great for communicating about an assignment within a post or an assignment. So hopefully that didn't just confuse you. So then I could go in, I could view my assignment. So now I'm going in and my students had this assignment to do. This were the instructions for the students. It was Nearpod, so I attached it. Nearpod works directly in Google Classroom. I assigned it to them and they would click on it. Some of them had trouble getting the link, and I just reposted the link in here as a class comment to let them know. Then if I go into student work, I could then see, this was a Nearpod, so not a good example, but I could actually click on and see the student's work. So I could go in, I could click on a student. I could now give her private comments on this assignment. Okay, great work. Maybe you need to do this, whatever feedback I want to give them, and send it to them before I even give them a grade. So maybe, you know what, they could do a little better. Let me post a private comment. Hey, you might want to update or change this, and then resubmit it. You have the option to do that. Once I have an assignment, again, I'm not giving a good example on here. So I'm going to try to go to, here was an assignment they had to do a cooking show assignment. So this was a Google Doc that I sent out to them. I could see over here, these are turned in, but I have not graded them yet. These were assigned, okay? So I could see where I graded, how, who turned it in, who graded it. I could look by all students, or I could sort by status, by last name, first name. Status is turned in, assigned, graded. Okay, so I could see all my students here. I could return all the students' work at one time. So I have a lot of options over here. And here's my grading category. And I'm sorry if I'm going a little fast for you guys, but this hour is flying by and I feel like I covered the basics, but I want to try to get in a little bit more. So if I was going to grade, I could click in. It's going to bring me into this assignment. It's going to pop up. Okay, I sent out a copy for each student. I sent it out. They responded. Okay, I could be grading the assignment. I could also have comments. Again, I'm just going to show you that it's there, but I'm not going to talk about it. You could have a comment bank and respond to them right away from the comment bank. You could add comments, but I could send a private, hey, nice work, hope you like the show, whatever you want to say, and give it a grade. So I don't want to do this because it's my class, but nice job. I could put 100 and then I'm going to return the student's work. So I don't have to give feedback, but it's nice to give feedback. I could give the grade. Once I return the work, they immediately going to get notified. They could see their grade right away. I could also toggle and see all my students without having to return each one. So I could go through each one of my students, do all my grading as I go through, add my private comments, and then just do a return all at one time. So I could go through here, I could go by assigned, I could go for class, I could go by status. So again, I'm going fast. I just, for the most part, want you to know the different features that is available out there. Okay. I wanted to show you some of the question features and what it looks like. So let's see, I did some class check-ins. Here we go. So I did a question, how do we feel about learning from home? So a lot of times this question feature is great for the SEL portion with your class and kind of connect with them. So I try to make it a little more fun, but we got like a poll and the kids would love to it's good for me to see, oh, wow, kids want to go back to school. They've had enough of this. They're not quite sure. So, and the kids had the option of seeing this. So great way to do a check-in and see what they're doing. I think I might end it here just so I can answer some questions that you might have and have some time to answer questions. So let me come back up and I'm gonna stop recording.